In this Python Basics video, we're going to be talking about functions. Working with functions is a great way to divide up your program into manageable chunks that can be reused. It will also make your program much more efficient, and once you get the hang of it, it will actually make it easier to code and definitely easier to fix problems. Let's go ahead and define a simple function. So I'm going to start by using the keyword def, which is short for define. I'm then going to type the name of my function, bracket bracket, and a colon. Hit return. You can now see that I'm indented. Within here, I'm just going to say first name equals input. Enter your first name. And I'll do something similar for last name. Equals input. Enter your last name. And then we'll make it print hello space plus first name plus space plus last name. Let's go ahead and call our new function. Say hello bracket bracket, run. Enter your first name. Johnny. Enter your last name. Depp. Hello Johnny Depp. So there's a very simple example of defining a function. Now let's have a look at a more complex example. Let's say we want a function that adds two numbers. So I'm going to define a function called add, bracket bracket. And inside, let's say that num1 is 10 and num2 is 20. I could then say total equals num1 plus num2, and I could print total. And let's run that function. It does exactly what it's told, and it prints out the answer 30. But I want this function to work in such a way that when I call the function, I can tell it the two numbers that I want to add, so I could do this. And it would take those two numbers, add them together, and print the total. So the way that we do that is by using something called parameters. Inside the function definition, inside these brackets, I can type in values that I want to be using inside the function. So I'm going to type num1, num2. Now that means when I call this function, I have to give it those two numbers. So now, when I call this function, the 10 goes into num1 and the 20 goes into num2. Those values are then added together and stored in total, and total is then printed. If I run it, it prints out 30. I can now change these values to anything I want. So I could make it print 300 and 123. It's going to add those together and give me 423. So by using parameters like this, we're able to make our functions much more versatile. So instead of that function adding two specific numbers, it can now be used to add any two numbers. Now let's make our function work in a slightly different way. So instead of it printing the total, I'm going to make it return total. Now what that means is that this function is going to be giving back that total value. It's not going to be printing it over here. That means that when I call the function, I have to do something with the value that I'm given back. Otherwise that value just disappears. So for example, I could create a variable called answer and store that total that is returned. So now this is going to call that function. It's going to pass in these two values, which will get added up, stored in total, then returned, and that returned value will be stored in answer. So I could then print answer. And there we go, it still works. Practice makes perfect, so let's have a go at another one. This time, let's make a function called multiply. And multiply is going to accept two parameters, a and b. And what I'm going to do is just return a times b. Very simple function. Now what I need to do is call the multiply function, make sure that I give it two values. If you don't give it the number of values it's expecting, it will throw an error. Again, I need to do something with the value that it returns. If I run it right now, it runs the function, it does its job, but because I haven't done anything with the value that was returned, we don't see any output from the program. So let's do something. Let's actually go ahead and print that. It prints 200. And there you go. That was a quick overview of how to use functions with parameters and return values. So now you understand a bit more about functions in Python. See you next time.